Novel, Beyond the Silent Door. Episode 2. Arnab recognized the voice standing on the other side of the door, but his brain seemed unwilling to bring the name to his lips. Fear often does that. It makes the familiar seem alien, and the alien strangely intimate. He turned the lock. As the door opened, the yellow light of the corridor revealed a woman standing there. She looked to be in her late 20s. She had a long face, tired eyes, and hair tied in a messy bun. She wore a gray raincoat. There was no rain outside, yet her shoulders looked damp, as if she had walked through the morning mist. Arnab whispered, "Riddhi?" The girl nodded slightly and said, "Yes. Are you going to let me in now?" Arnab stepped aside. His chest was trembling. He had last seen Riddhi on the day of Meera's funeral rites. That day, too, her eyes had been red, not from crying, but from a suppressed rage. Riddhi was Meera's younger sister, about 6 years her junior. Arnab had once shared a good relationship with her, but over time a distance had grown, and after Meera's death it had reached a point of complete rupture. Riddhi walked inside and looked around. "I see you haven't moved a single thing yet." Arnab didn't reply. In the silence of the flat, even the faint hum of a distant refrigerator seemed to grate on the ears. Riddhi walked slowly toward the table. Her eyes stopped on the black key. Her expression shifted slightly. "So, you've met her," she said. Arnab's throat felt parched. Met whom? Riddhi looked at him. "Ila." For a few seconds no one spoke. Arnab felt the air in the room grow heavy. "Do you know Ila?" he asked. Riddhi gave a short, bitter laugh. To say I don't know her would be a lie, but to say I know her wouldn't be the whole truth either. "Don't speak in riddles." "You've been living inside a riddle all this time, Dulabai," brother-in-law. The word Dulabai felt strange after so long, but instead of the old warmth, the word carried something as cold as ice. Arnab stood still. Riddhi spoke directly now. "Meera spoke to me several times before she died, frequently toward the end." "I know." "No, you don't. You only know that she spoke to me. You don't know what she spoke about." That familiar unease rose in Arnab's chest again. About what? Riddhi scrutinized him for a moment, as if checking if he truly didn't know or was just acting. "Meera was afraid," she said. "Of what?" "Of you." It felt like a physical blow to Arnab's head. "What rubbish are you talking about?" Riddhi didn't flinch. "I knew you'd say that. Do you even realize what you're saying? I loved her." "Loved her?" Riddhi's voice suddenly grew sharp. "Yes, you loved her. People tell the biggest lies to those they love. That much I've learned." Arnab suppressed his anger and asked, "Do you know what happened that night?" Riddhi replied, "I don't know everything, but I know that what's written in the police report isn't the whole truth." Her gaze fell on the file lying on the table. Arnab said slowly, "Do you know that the report mentions traces of a child's clothing?" A shadow of fear flickered in Riddhi's eyes for a split second. "So you've read it. What does it mean? Was there a child in the car?" Arnab's voice trembled. "Who was it?" Riddhi didn't answer. Instead, she opened her bag and pulled out a thick envelope. It was white, old and yellowed at the edges. On the envelope was Arnab's handwriting. "Personal, better not to open." Arnab was stunned. "This?" he whispered. "This is my handwriting." Riddhi nodded. "Yes, and I found this among Meera's things, 2 days after the funeral." "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because looking at you back then, I couldn't tell if you were truly broken or just acting like you were." Arnab took the envelope. His fingers were cold. He couldn't remember when he had written this, why he had written it, or what was inside. "Open it," Riddhi said. Arnab opened the envelope. Inside were 3 things. 1. An ultrasound report. 2. A small photo. Meera smiling, but with anxiety in her eyes. 3. A folded piece of paper. His eyes first locked onto the ultrasound report. Patient name, Meera Sen. Gestational age, 11 weeks. Arnab's breath hitched. He looked up. Meera was pregnant? Riddhi lowered her eyes. Yes. The room suddenly felt like it was tilting. Arnab pulled a chair and sat down. It felt as if the floor was turning into soft mud. No, he muttered. No, this isn't possible. I didn't know. Why didn't I know? Riddhi said very softly, You did know. Arnab looked up, his eyes vacant. I knew? Yes. No, if I had known, I would have remembered. People don't remember everything, especially if they don't want to remember. Arnab's hands were shaking. He opened the second piece of paper. This time his own handwriting was even clearer, but the words seemed to belong to someone else, or a version of himself he no longer recognized. Meera, if you are reading this, it means I have failed to speak to you again. I know you think I am hiding something from you. Yes, I am, but the reason isn't what you think. I didn't want you to keep this child right now, because I am not sure if it is safe to bring a child into whatever it is we are trapped in. You say I am afraid for no reason. Perhaps you are right. But if I am not wrong, then something older than both of us is following us. If one day I don't remember anything, this letter will be proof that I, at least at one time, understood the truth. Arnab. Arnab's vision blurred before he could finish the letter. I wrote this? He whispered. Yes. Something older than both of us. What does that mean? I don't know, but Meera knew you didn't write those words out of thin air. Arnab suddenly looked at the last line again. If one day I don't remember anything. The hair on his neck stood up. Did I know beforehand that something would happen to my memory? Riddhi said slowly, Meera told me once that you had been behaving strangely for months. You'd get up in the middle of the night and stand in front of the door. You'd say things in your sleep that you wouldn't remember when you woke up. Sometimes you'd say, someone is walking in the house. Then in the morning you remembered nothing. Arnab's face went pale. Fragments of scenes began to prick at his mind. Standing in the kitchen drinking water, seeing someone move in the corridor, running but finding no one, Meera saying, it can't go on like this. Then everything stopped. Why did you keep this hidden for so long? He burst out. Why? Riddhi raised her voice too. Because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Of whether you'd truly forgotten or just pretending to forget. I couldn't tell. Silence. Both were panting. Outside, the first light of dawn was beginning to break. Pale gray light filtered through the gaps in the curtains. Things from the night are supposed to look less terrifying in the daylight, but today it felt the opposite. Riddhi sat down in front of him. Her voice was now weary. Meera came to me a week before she died, alone. She was very restless. She said if anything happened to her, I should find one thing. What thing? A red diary.
Arnab's heart gave a thud. Where's the diary? Riddhi shook her head. I didn't find it. Then? But Meera said the diary is with you. Maybe you don't even know you have it. Arnab stared blankly. Was there something in this flat he didn't know about? Or something he knew but had forgotten? Riddhi added, She said one more thing. What? She said if she died suddenly, everyone would think it was an accident, but I should look for the door. Arnab's breath caught. The door? Yes, Riddhi said. She only said, he has started seeing the door again. Cold sweat broke out on Arnab's forehead. I told her that? Maybe. How else would she know? Somewhere in the room, a very faint sound occurred. Tick. Both went silent. Then again, tick, tick. This time the sound wasn't coming from the main door. It seemed to be coming from inside the bedroom. Arnab and Riddhi looked toward the corridor together. Once more, tick, Riddhi whispered very softly. "Are you sure you live alone?" Arnab didn't answer. He stood up slowly and moved toward the corridor. He could hear Riddhi's breathing behind him. Though the flat was small, at that moment the corridor felt unnaturally long. The bedroom door was half open. It was dark inside. The curtains were drawn. As he pushed the door open and entered, the sound stopped. The room was empty. The bed was messy. The side table, the bookshelf, 2 frames on the wall, everything was normal. "Where did it come from?" Riddhi asked from behind. Arnab didn't answer and began to look around the room. His eyes landed on the top shelf of the cupboard. An old wooden box was kept there, covered in years of dust. Had he not noticed it before? Or was it always there? "Was that there before?" Riddhi whispered. Arnab stepped forward and took the box down. His hands were stained with dust. There was no lock on the box, but the lid was stuck. With a little pressure, it snapped open. Inside were some old papers, 2 photos, a small blue knitted baby sock, and a red diary. They both held their breath. "Riddhi?" asked in a trembling voice. "Is this it?" Arnab picked up the diary. The cover was red leather, the corners worn out. It was bound with a rubber band. On the first page, written in black ink, "If I forget, I will start again from here." Below it, Arnab. Arnab's diary almost slipped from his hand. I wrote a diary for myself?" Riddhi said nothing. Arnab turned the first page. The first few pages were filled with scattered notes. There were dates, but they weren't chronological. Somewhere it was written, "Same corridor at night, faceless pictures on the wall." Somewhere else, "Meera couldn't hear it, but I heard it clearly, the sound of a child running upstairs." On another page, "Shouldn't have met Ela, but if I don't go, it might be too late." Riddhi whispered, "You had been going to her for a long time?" Arnab couldn't answer. He kept turning the pages. He stopped at one. The writing was shaky, as if written in a great hurry. "Meera is pregnant. I should be happy, but I am afraid. The child I see in my dreams isn't ours, yet he comes into our house. Ela said, 'Empty spaces never stay empty. What once finds a way in seeks a blood relation.' I don't believe this, but even if I don't believe it, the thing is there. Tonight, Meera said she saw a small shadow in the corridor." Riddhi's face went white. "What are these things?" Arnab's lips were dry and cracking. "I don't know." The next page held something even more terrifying. "We had an argument about whether to keep the baby. I said, 'Not now.' Meera thinks I don't want to take responsibility. She doesn't know the fear is elsewhere. Yesterday morning there was a handprint on the fog of the bathroom mirror, a child's hand. Meera says I'm going mad." Arnab suddenly closed his eyes. A sound raced through his head. "You're telling me I can't be a mother?" Meera's voice, angry and sobbing. His own voice, "I'm saying not now." The sound of something hitting a wall, a glass shattering. Then Meera saying, "Your fear isn't about the baby. Your fear is about that thing you don't want to tell me." Arnab opened his eyes, panting. "What happened?" Riddhi stepped closer. I can remember a little," he said, but the rest got stuck. The pages at the end of the diary were even more chaotic. Many lines were crossed out. Some were half sentences. Somewhere just one word repeated. "Door."
Then, on almost the last page, it was written, "I decided today, if she doesn't believe me, I must at least protect her. Isla said as long as the memory is kept alive, the door will stay open. The memory must be broken, otherwise he will come. I don't know if Isla is telling the truth, but my time is up. If I am reading this, I must have done the job. And if Meera doesn't survive, then God will not forgive me." The last line was incomplete. The ink was smudged, as if his hand had shaken while writing. Silence fell over the room. Riddhi asked very softly, "What does 'done the job' mean?" Arnab didn't answer, because in his head many pictures were awakening at once. Night, rain, Meera crying inside the car, something moving in the back seat. Was he driving? No, Meera. Raindrops on the glass, Meera saying, "You can't do this," and another voice, very faint, very small, "Ma." Arnab suddenly clutched his head with both hands. "No, no, this isn't true." Riddhi stared with stunned eyes. "What did you hear?" Arnab slowly raised his head. Terror was in his eyes. "There was someone in the car." Riddhi's lips trembled. "A child?" I don't know," he said, almost weeping. "But there was a voice." At that very moment, someone seemed to scrape their nails against the bedroom window from the outside. Scritch, scritch. Both of them jumped. The curtains were closed. The dull light of dawn was on the other side, but the sound happened again, slower, more deliberate. Scritch. Riddhi was truly terrified now. What is doing that? Arnab gathered courage and stepped forward. He pulled the curtain in one tug. No one was on the other side of the window. Only a symbol drawn on the glass from the inside, drawn with small wet fingers. A circle with a vertical line through its center. Arnab's heart stopped. He recognized this symbol. The head of the black key at Isla's house had the same design. Riddhi whispered, "What does it mean?" Arnab spoke very slowly, almost to himself. The door wasn't just in the dreams. Then his eyes fell on the object lying below the window. On the carpet, a patch of wet mud, and within it was a clear, pressed footprint, very small. A child's. No sound came from Riddhi's mouth. Arnab leaned in to look. It wasn't just one footprint. There was another, then another, as if someone had climbed down from the window and walked toward the corner of the room. And what was in that corner? A small wooden cradle. Arnab's breath choked. Why was this cradle here? Had he never seen it, or had he seen it and his eyes avoided it? It was folded away as if it hadn't been used in years. Old varnish on the wood, a blue ribbon tied to the side. Riddhi said in a trembling voice, Did you guys buy this?" Arnab's lips went dry. A scene returned to his mind like a lightning strike. Night, rain, Meera crying inside the car, something moving in the back seat. Was he driving? No, Meera? Raindrops on the glass, Meera saying, "You can't do this," and another voice, very faint, very small, "Ma." Arnab suddenly clutched his head with both hands. "No, no, this isn't true." Riddhi stared with stunned eyes. "What did you hear?" Arnab slowly raised his head. Terror was in his eyes. "There was someone in the car." Riddhi's lips trembled. "A child?" I don't know," he said, almost weeping. "But there was a voice." At that very moment, someone seemed to scrape their nails against the bedroom window from the outside. Scritch, scritch. Both of them jumped. The curtains were closed. The dull light of dawn was on the other side, but the sound happened again, slower, more deliberate. Scritch.
Both of them jumped. The curtains were closed. The dull light of dawn was on the other side, but the sound happened again, slower, more deliberate. Scritch. Riddhi was truly terrified now. Who was doing that? Arnab gathered courage and stepped forward. He pulled the curtain in one tug. No one was on the other side of the window. Only a symbol, drawn on the glass from the inside, drawn with small, wet fingers. A circle, with a vertical line through its center. Arnab's heart stopped. He recognized this symbol. The head of the black key at Ila's house had the same design. Riddhi whispered, "What does it mean?" Arnab spoke very slowly, almost to himself. The door wasn't just in the dreams. Then his eyes fell on the object lying below the window. On the carpet, a patch of wet mud, and within it was a clear, pressed footprint, very small, a child's. No sound came from Riddhi's mouth. Arnab leaned in to look. It wasn't just one footprint. There was another, then another, as if someone had climbed down from the window and walked toward the corner of the room. And what was in that corner? A small wooden cradle. Arnab's breath choked. Why was this cradle here? Had he never seen it, or had he seen it and his eyes avoided it? It was folded away, as if it hadn't been used in years. Old varnish on the wood, a blue ribbon tied to the side. Riddhi said in a trembling voice, Did you guys buy this?" Arnab's lips went dry. A scene returned to his mind like a lightning strike. Meera standing in a shop, touching the cradle and saying, "I know it's bad luck to buy things early, but I like this." Arnab is forcing a smile. Then, on the glass of the shop, a small shadow stands behind them for a brief moment. The vision faded. Arnab sat down on the floor on his knees. His voice was breaking. "Our baby." Tears came to Riddhi's eyes, but she said nothing. Arnab moved toward the cradle. As he touched it, it began to rock very slowly on its own. Creak. The air in the room became cold as ice, and from inside the cradle came a sound. First, very faint, as if air were trapped inside the wood. Then clearer. A child's laughter. Riddhi screamed and backed away. Arnab froze. There was nothing inside the cradle, yet the laughter was there. Then another sound blended with the laughter, a woman's whisper, from very close, very familiar. "Will you forget this time too?" Arnab turned around slowly. By the door, inside the bedroom, standing in the dull morning light, was Meera. But she wasn't distant or blurred like in the dreams. This time she was clear. Her face was pale, her hair wet, her clothes white and ruined by rain. Her eyes were tired yet steady. She was clutching her stomach with one hand, as if out of habit, as if someone was still there. Riddhi said in a trembling voice, "Didi?" Meera didn't look at Riddhi. Her eyes were only on Arnab. "You have started. Now you must remember the end yourself." Arnab's lips were trembling. Did I do something to you?" Meera raised her hand to stop him. "The truth doesn't come at all once. It comes in pieces, just as you broke." "What did I break?" Meera's voice dropped even lower. "Memory, promises, and the last panel of the door." Suddenly, all the lights in the house went out at once. Riddhi screamed. In the darkness, Arnab could only hear 3 distinct sounds: the creaking of the cradle, the laughter of the child, and Meera's final sentence. "Reach the lake house before tonight, otherwise this time he won't spare any of us." Then the light returned. No one was by the door. The cradle was still, but an object lay on the floor, small, silver, and wet. Riddhi picked it up, trembling. It was a locket. Upon opening the locket, there were 2 pictures. On one side, Arnab and Meera. On the other, a tiny copy of an ultrasound, and engraved inside the lid of the locket, "Neel." Arnab whispered, "Neel?" Riddhi looked at him, her eyes a mix of terror and wonder. "Was that going to be your baby's name?" Meera's smiling face flashed in Arnab's mind. "If it's a girl, Neela. If it's a boy, Neel." Then darkness again.